at least one of the most important pieces of it. I mean, no randomization. We as patient recruitment companies know that no randomization without a site at this point of view, at this point of time, at least. That might change. But thank you for the introduction. And I think with that, everybody understands that there are great people in this panel that I'm hoping they're sharing their view on certain things here. And I'd like to start to kick it off with the question, what is your thinking on direct-to-patient trials in the light of patient recruitment and retention? Since this is one of the major topics here. So what is that, how you see direct-to-patient trials? It's a bit of a buzzword, also the decentralized clinical trials. It would be interesting to get your view where they really stand, and what is the, let's say, the part which is not yet there and where it should go. But again, if you could add something around patient recruitment and retention to it, that would certainly help to come closer to the topic. Rasmus, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I can do so. Actually, it is an honor to be here, Michael. I honestly, we didn't have the chance to meet at the CNS, but you know, when I started the patient recruitment company, you know, I was very much inspired by what the great thing that you did at Clarinets, right? Because it all starts from the patient, right? If we don't have participants who are motivated, who knows what they're signing up for, you know, it is we cannot conduct clinical research, right? You know, so I think it's crucial that we know to speak the same language, so we know how to communicate, and that is not only from, you know, industry to patients. It is also the internal conversations that we have in the industry, right? You know, so to see these things and seeing this involvement and disruption, or maybe just, you know, change in the way that we are designing protocols. We are seeing protocols who are being more and more complex. We are approaching the more precision medicine, the personal medicine. Just imagine all the biologics that we are seeing right now. So of course it gets more and more difficult to find eligible participants, because before we had maybe 5 checkpoints to see if you were eligible for attending a study. Now I think in an average protocol we are seeing 30 different kind of scenarios that you need to fit into that. So you know, in the very first touch point is what you are doing at Clarinets, you know, and you are doing a great job finding, motivating participants, right? And then of course handling over to sites, handing over to CROs to ensure that going through the whole study, that people know exactly what is expected and where they can go if they have any questions. Because basically we know everything stops when there is uncertainty involved in that algorithm, right? You know, so that is my take here, Michael.
Thanks, Rasmus, for that. I would add that obviously direct-to-patient trials make it more democratized. So you don't have to be closer to a site if you even run virtual studies, or the visits are less visits than there are. So that makes our job as patient recruiters easier, because we obviously have broader access to people. No matter where they are, we can reach them, we can include them in studies. I think that would really help the whole trials overall to find more patient diverse a set of patients, obviously, and that makes it obviously easier for us as an industry to, first of all, you know, having more participants on one hand, and have diverse population in such trials. So I think there are a lot of unanswered questions, especially in Europe when it comes to regulations. I think the US is far ahead of that, but nothing we cannot solve. Carl or Ariel, anything you want to add to this topic around direct to patient trials?
Not from my end.
Yes, so I would like to understand a bit from you, Carl. How do you see the role of sites in decentralized clinical trials? Do you see any reluctance from sites? Do you think they see it positively? How would that development go? I've seen sites that said, "Wow, this is somehow like a threat to us." Others see that as a positive piece of their work. What is your take on this?
Yeah, a great question, and I think I cannot give a 100% answer on it, because I would say and this is my personal guess, that probably 95% of all the sites across the world have not yet heard about DCTs and their possibilities. The big majority of sites is located within hospitals or private practices, and they do and are running clinical trials in a way they have done it for decades, right? So within the IMI Trials at Home, we conducted a pan-European site survey, and this survey confirmed that roughly 70% of all responders that they have never heard about DCTs before. And so when you were asking how do the sites think about DCTs, then I would say there are those kind of sites that we would call early adopters. They are the ones who really do see the opportunities. It's easier to recruit patients. The patient burden is much smaller because patients can simply stay at home and participate from at home or from vacation or from wherever they are. And then you have the big majority who has no clue about DCTs. And I would say that there, many sites, if they will hear about a DCT, they probably have concerns or even some fears, because they think that a DCT would put the site at risk. And this is something where, and maybe this forum is also a good place to really call for, let's join our forces, let's join our activities to really educate the sites across the world that they are aware of DCTs, that they understand the possibilities associated to DCTs, and that they also understand what a DCT means to them, what requirements are needed, what skills are needed, what staff is needed. So there will be changes for sites, and it is our duty as sponsors, together with tech, like with companies like with Medible, to really educate the sites in a way that they are positive towards DCTs. And there are many external initiatives like DTRA, City, Transcelerate. They all work on education, but by all means, I don't really see that industry is joining forces and that we really go for a joint and aligned way to educate sites about DCTs.
Thank you very much for that. I guess here in Echo, I guess that this training and this education of sites is certainly a very, very important point. I wasn't there, but one of my colleagues was there. There's always this site summit in Florida, and there was kind of skepticism around it. But I guess it's, as you said, a lot of education to be done here. Rasmus, what is your take, being very much involved in it with Medible? And certainly, Ariel, if you have anything to add, I'm extremely happy to.
It is very difficult to come after Carl Ludwig, because I completely agree what he's saying. Though one of my mantras in 2021 has been to destigmatize or taking down the myth about decentralized clinical research. It is definitely not a site killer. We are a site helper. We are every day striving towards building tools to help sites, right? Because if we can give just sites 1 hour back in their daily routines, that is 1 hour more that they can invest in the relationship with participants, right? And in the very end, that is the relationship that will have a direct impact in retention. It will have direct impact in the data quality. It will have the direct impact in terms of how our industry is branded. Let's be honest, the pharmaceutical industry didn't have a good brand because we were earning money on people's diseases, right? But what we have seen so far, and what we have seen, if we just stand together, sharing best practice, are transparent, we can see there is a better buy-in in the whole, community, or from a global perspective. So what really made me join Medible was 2 things. Medible was founded by our CEO, Dr. Michelle Longmire. She was a board-certified dermatologist, and she was doing fantastic research at Stanford, right? But it was so old school. So she thought, okay, how can we make this easier? How can we streamline this? And on top of that, to bring in the site voice, but also to bring in the patient voice in this equation. So that was the reason why very early on she founded what we call the Patient Advocacy Council. So every time that a sponsor or CRO is coming, we will bring the site voice, but also the patient voice into how we think it and how we can operate it, right? And I think it's pretty clear that we need to listen to all the voices in this ecosystem to ensure we have a good output. So yeah, I don't know, Ariel, if you want to.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Can you well?
Yeah. So I think it's so we focus on the site point of view or approach, but I think we forget a little bit that the site when we do clinical trial, the main point of contact will be the CRA.
Yeah.
No, still, even if we do remotely, I don't know if you agree. So I think what I saw in my team is we have different partners, like you. And but we forget that we are a lack of training of the CRA. So when they do initiation, even remotely, they're not very well trained, and all this new technology. So of course, we can have young CRA who are much better than us on the technology. The manager, for example, we are not a part of this generation. So we forget, to first train well the one who is going to support the site in recruiting. So this is what I wanted to add to improve this relationship.
Yeah.
But I guess we all agree that sites will be a part of clinical trials for a long time.
Absolutely.
Ariel, what do you think?
Can you repeat that?
I said, would you agree that sites will be part of clinical trials for a long time? I mean, really physical sites?
Yes, of course, yeah. So we need to, of course, to help them, and not much more, Remotely, it's more difficult.
Yes.
Can I add to this? And I think this is one reason why we really have to increase our communicational efforts, that the sites understand that the DCT model doesn't put the site at risk. No, it's just a change of where certain trial activities take place and how they take place. But there will always be a PI, there will always be a study coordinator, and there will always be the need for a study nurse. And just some skills and some responsibilities will change. New partners will come on board, tech partners come on board. Yes, this makes the whole thing more complicated. Yes, this needs more education. And I totally agree with Ariel, what you just said regarding the CRAs. We have also realized that our people have not fully yet understand what a DCT is. And I personally do think if our project managers and if our CRAs have not understood what a DCT is and that they love the topic, how they are able to transfer this passion, this enthusiasm about this new opportunity, how can they transfer this to the site if they by themselves are not enthusiastic?
Very good point. And I guess one way of helping this whole topic is to take the myths out of this and the fear and what it is and what not. And I guess this is I was able, as Rasmus just said, to participate in the Boston conference CNS, which was a lot about decentralized trials, where I personally learned a lot more than I knew before. And one topic is obviously that it's not getting rid of the sites. I think this is a very important step. Everybody seems to agree to this, at least on the panel. But it is to increase or bring technology to clinical trials. And with that, and I guess it's the most important piece, to make it easier for patients and sites to have visits, to communicate. And having said that, I would like to understand from you guys, or a bit more light into this myth-loaded topic of the decentralized trials, and maybe we can start with Rasmus again. What is it? What is it not? Is it the future? And how would that go? How do you see that? Just a couple of minutes of that. I think the audience.
I can take that. I definitely not. I do not think that DCT is the future. And people will be, breaking news that I will not say that. I think clinical trial will be the future. I think, and I've said that many times, that DCT is currently just a working title because we will take the lessons learned, we will evaluate what really brings the value, right? And then we'll just conduct clinical research and we will utilize technology where it really matters. So definitely digitalization of clinical research will definitely be the future. I also envision, and we saw that at the previously keynote, that we will see much more in terms of the adaptive clinical studies. So I really am motivated about bringing the choice back to the end user. Bringing back, tearing down all the burdens that is involved, right? We are all unique individuals, right? So we have different kind of needs to be engaged. So I really want to go in and bring this kind of adaptive design into clinical research. And that is where you can utilize technology. So there will be people who really see a value coming to sites every day, but there will also be people who don't have the time and they will not select to be part of a clinical study. But we will definitely see electronic consents, we will see televisits, we will definitely see digital biomarkers. We will hear more about that next tomorrow. But in the very end, it's a matter of minimizing the burden, increasing quality, and in the very end, reduce time, because right now the average time to get a compound to the market is approximately 10 years, right? I think it's unambitious. It should be 5 years. It should be 2 years. Listen, guys, people are waiting for treatments right now. People are dying. People are having chronic pain right now. They have one wish in their life, and that is to have better treatment. And we have, the obligation. I think it is, we should stand together to bring that, timeline down without jeopardizing quality. And that is where us from Medable, in collaboration with all of people here, even though, competitors, etc., it's a matter of collaboration, sharing best practice, sharing mistakes, so we don't do the same mistakes over and over again, because I really believe that sharing best practices is where we can reduce the time to market.
Thank you very much, Rasmus, for that. Carl, Ariel, what do you want to add to this? Is it the future? Rasmus just said he doesn't believe in the top and in the term, that's how I understood you at least, Rasmus, correct me if I'm wrong, that DCT is the future, but rather bringing technology, digitalization into clinical trials. I think this is what you said, so just changing the word. Yes, I can agree to that. Any other thoughts on it, Carl?
First of all, it sounds quite provocative what Rasmus just said, but content-wise, I totally agree with him. It's so the vision that we have within Janssen is really that the patient, that the trial participation is like you're sitting in front of a menu card in the restaurant, and you just choose from the menu card of what you like, and what you like you will get served. And so the participant decides to take part in a clinical trial, and then together with the PI, the study participant goes through the whole study, and together they decide, okay, where will a study visit will be on site, where, because the patient is on vacation, where he will join from wherever he is on the world. So just having this flexibility that is enabled by technology, I think that's the future. And I mean, if we could bring down the overall time until a new compound can be brought to the market, this would be good for the patients, and for sure for a company like Janssen, it would also be highly attractive. Nevertheless, I'm not sure whether it will be really possible to decrease this time frame. Nevertheless, I think that, for example, when using wearables, we have opportunities to collect much more data. And maybe because we are collecting more data per patient, we need to enroll less patients in a clinical trial, because we have all the data collected by a smaller number of patients. And this might end that we can close trials faster, earlier, and this ultimately will then decrease the overall time frame until a new compound can receive market authorization.
That would be hopefully something we wish for. Ariel, anything you want to add to this?
Yes. So still from the point of view of the monitoring, I think yes. I think we are going to accelerate all the process with this decentralized clinical trial. We are more proactive. I think we are more. We work with risk-based analysis, so we will spend less time on site. We do remote check. So and we focus on the important point for the patient safety. So I think we are going to go to this direction, no? To short all the timelines of the clinical trial.
To elaborate on that, and that is one of the things that I really believe where technology really matters. And I know it was a little bit prerogative to say DCT, but you can call it what you want as long as we are reaching the goal, right? So you can call it what it is. Right now, we have decided that we have a working title called DCT. We call it remote clinical research. We call it virtual clinical research, direct to patient clinical research. Call it what you want, as long as we are getting there. But one of the things that I really see with technology is the black box. So what is actually happening between the visits? It has been literally just, what has happened, right? And that is also very much tied into real world evidence, real world data, right? Because we know for a fact that participants do not report small side effects, because that could be a headache, that could be a small rash, that could be dizziness, right? Because in 4 weeks, 6 weeks time, when they have the next visit at the site, right? They forgot. So right now, if you give it by, patient's own phone, provision devices, etc., it is just a click away to report these safety. And basically, from GCP, that is the most important thing that we support, is to keep participants safe when they are attending in clinical studies.
Yeah, I think if I can summarize it quickly, I hear that obviously we want to reduce the timelines of clinical research, which brings medication or solutions or help to our patients quicker. That's certainly something which we all want to do, and technology, DCT or whatever you want to call it, is a very good tool for it. I think the second one that I would like to also emphasize on is that obviously to make it accessible for more people, no matter how old they are, how young they are, if they can move or not, and to make it more comfortable. So really in the light of patient centricity, which is another buzzword, which I think really brought a lot of positive effects to this industry too in the last years. And maybe one of the reactions is that we now say, how can we make it even easier and more comfortable for the patients to participate? Two things I would really like to understand here, still on this topic, is what are the technologies, you briefly touched on it, that you see becoming, and the other one is the regulatory issues that you see around that. Still, I mean, in Europe, at least what I've experienced, what I hear from our regulatory, from our, let's say, association around pharma companies here in Germany, at least I hear that regulations are very strict and not clear. So it's really hard to introduce many of these things. So first of all, what technology do you think about talking about DCT? And secondly, what is your experience with the regulatory bodies? And I'm happy for anybody to answer, but if you want me to pick, maybe Carl from a sponsor point of view and Rasmus from a provider point of view, since I would assume you have a good overview.
Rasmus, you want to take the technology?
Yeah, I can take it. So at Medable, we are very much inspired by, this kind of seamless experience. So if my wife wants a pair of high heel shoes, right? She can go to Amazon, and literally Amazon already know what she wants. They know the color, they know her size, and literally just a click away. That is basically the motivation that we have at Medable. It should be easy. It should be, a seamless experience, right? Click away, we will find a study where you are eligible, right? And of course, from technology perspective, digital biomarkers, passive data, of course, tools as we have utilized in the pandemic, like, televisits, e-consent, but also to ensure that we can predict potentially upcoming risks, right? Because data is literally the key to ensure not only approval, but also to ensure the safety of participants. So highlight two things right now. Of course, it is, televisits and e-consent, because e-consent is much more than just a signature. It is a matter of how to communicate so the end user know exactly what they're signing up for. So just to highlight two technologies that I definitely forecast to be adopted and be continuously involved in studies.
So I can add something here. So what we in Europe, actually, with the new data protection and data privacy, since 2 years now, it become more difficult. So during the pandemic, for example, we put in place a remote monitoring, and in some country in Europe, we faced that we were not allowed to do video conference with the site. So for each country in Europe, in Asia as well, but we had to adapt our approach. So in another country, we were allowed only to do a phone call. In Spain, video conference were fine, but we still here there is again harmonization from I think the European authority to harmonize the approach of the access to the patient data, I would say.
Thanks a lot for that. Carl, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so I would rather touch on the regular perspective, because and you will get a two-sided answer. So the formal answer is the current regulatory framework does allow DCTs. It's what the authorities will tell you: if you stick to the current legislation, we can approve everything. And just to give you an example, what I recently heard from the German BfArM is they said, well, if a sponsor submits a device that is not CE certified, well, then the BfArM has no other choice but to reject this device. If the sponsor is so stupid to include a device that has no CE certificate, well, then it's our own mistake. And I totally agree to this approach. The other side, and that's why I said it's a two-sided answer, indeed, regulation in Europe is very strict and the barriers are very, very high. And what we need to do, and this is what currently happens across the countries, but also with the European EMA, that the pharmaceutical industry is having conversations that the regulators provide guidances, like it happened from the Danish Medicines Agency. The Swiss Pharm has issued something. The Swedish agency has issued something. So that sponsors and vendors and all partners do understand what are key requirements, because when it comes to data privacy is not an issue itself. The issue comes with how it is applied, and that Germany understands our privacy, data privacy may be a little bit different than, for example, the French government or the French agency do understand it. And there the problem occurs. And what we are doing is, or what we want to achieve is, the EMA is currently working on a European DCT guidance. The plan is to publish it in December this year, but I'm sure that it will be published in Q1 next year. And then let's see what this guidance will contain and what, for example, will happen in Germany. The BfArM agreed with the industry to go through certain showcases, like, for example, home health nursing, and to discuss the home health nursing approach so that the pharma industry can understand where the BfArM sees problems when it comes to home health nursing. Because the question is PI oversight. What happens when the patient is having some severe side effect at home? Is the nurse capable of taking care of this? What happens? Does the nurse call an ambulance, or does the nurse call the PI, and then the PI jumps into the next car, drives to the patient's home? So these are relevant questions that we need answers for. Summarizing, so I would say regulatory framework is there, but it needs to be specified a little more so that industry has a better understanding of what is possible and what is not possible. And by all means, I think clinical trials are global projects, and it will always happen that we include things that might work in the US or might work in Asia, but not necessarily in Europe. And this is something we somehow have to deal with.
Thanks a lot. One last question, which I really would like to bring up, is Ariel, I'd like you to maybe touch on this as remote monitoring, and maybe give us a short overview. You did a bit already, but maybe you could give us in a minute or two just a bit of overview on how you see that in the development of it. Did work on it.
Yes, so in Parexel we develop an hybrid process for remote monitoring. So we have very good tools. It was before the pandemic, but of course we developed it during the pandemic, where we do a remote monitoring, which doesn't touch the data verification. So we are able to check, adapted in each country, to check how the sites are managing the clinical trial, according to the protocol as GCP. So we train our team in that, and as well that's require as well good skill, communication skill by phone. We put in place some script for specific study to target the question they need to ask during those remote monitoring call. As well, we have it's not only within the call we can do remote monitoring. We have other different platform where we have different team, data management, risk-based monitoring team, to highlight the risk, I can say the key indicator, where we have to focus with the site. So that helps a lot of the CRA, but the hybrid is we still go back to the site. So still the CRA has to go back to the site when is asked. We have a risk-based monitoring approach, and then there is a different site where they may come back often because we can see there is a risk here for patient safety. So I think we did improve the last 2 years this approach, but we will keep this hybrid approach still going to the site as needed.
It looks like we have improved here as an industry too, that we're using technology here. Maybe with a call, with video calls, but then obviously one has to visit the sites once in a while whenever there's evidence or at certain events. Thank you very much. I think, if I'm not mistaken, our time is over. As much as I would like to talk further with you, I really enjoyed it, and I'd really like to thank you for your insights and your openness. And I guess everybody else here is joining me in thanking you to be participating in this panel. Ariel, Rasmus, and Carl, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I like to continue this and probably do with you one-on-one because really interesting insights that you gave us. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the time in Barcelona. The weather is better than here in Switzerland. Carl, you have a good day too.
Yeah. It is raining here. So Michael, thank you so much for facilitating this panel.
Doesn't sound like Barcelona, but okay. Enjoy, guys. Have a good time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye everybody.